Good morning, friends. Happy Monday, day after Easter. Ready to go back to work, getting ready for shows, thinking about the summer, turning a corner in our dance community for the better, I believe. How cool is that? Good morning and welcome to Coffee Talk, brought to you by the International Dance Entrepreneurs Association, also known as IDEA. You can learn more about us at ideadance.org. And right now, if you go to ideadance.org, you will be able to use some downloads, free downloads that are there for you, including a summer camp, some social media posts, and a seminar as well. Check it out. Once again, good morning, welcome. So we are passionate about dance education, passionate about our community as a whole. And with Coffee Talk, we talk to unique people around the country, unique topics. And today the topic is going to be a little bit up my alley, something that I wish that somebody had talked about when I was growing up, and that is growing up as a male dancer in small town America. What are the struggles? How do you keep going when there are struggles? The feeling of satisfaction when you're a success at something that you do that once people looked at as not a cool thing. There's a lot related to this topic that we'll get into today. In the meantime, I am going to run for you a commercial for the Dance Life Teacher Conference, which is coming up July 25 to 27, 5 tracks, preschool children's work, classroom, business, administrator, something for everybody on your team. I hope you'll join us. And good morning. Welcome, Drew and Brett, my special guests, Drew Burgess, Brett Perry. Brett is coming to us from Boise, Idaho, and Drew is coming to us from Columbus, Ohio. I got that right, yes?
Yep.
Awesome. Before we introduce you, I'd love to see who's with us today. In the comments, share your name and where you're from. Brett Perry, as we begin this discussion, tell everybody a little bit about your career as a dancer.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. Ree, thank you for having me. And Drew, great to be here with you. We've known each other for a long time. We grew up in the competition world together. I'm coming to you from Boise, Idaho. That is where I live as a freelance dancer and artist. And I've also been dabbling into farming over the last few years, which, Ree, I know you love that. So I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. I discovered dance at the dance company, which was at the time directed and owned by Diane Gudot, which I know many of you know. She is an extraordinary person, mentor, teacher. Grew up with her from the age of 4 when I started to when I graduated when I was 18. I moved to New York City. I went to Juilliard, spent 4 years there. Incredible program, loved my time at the Juilliard School. And then I was finding my way. Which way did I want to go? Looking at companies, dance companies. I knew I wanted to be in the professional dance company world, more concert dance rather than, say, commercial dance. And so I landed a gig with a dance company called the Trey McIntyre Project. Trey McIntyre is an American choreographer. And he based his company out of Boise, Idaho. Wanted to be in sort of a small to medium sized city where we could have great impact on the community and culture of this area. And that was in 2008, and I still live here. I travel a lot, working with different choreographers, doing different dance gigs, but this is my home.
Awesome. I love the farming part. I grew up with family who were farmers, and I think that our life is so different from that I appreciate anybody who knows that world, because there is joy there too. Drew Burgess, tell us a little bit about you and your dance career, my friend.
Well, speaking of farming, I grew up in the world's largest Amish community. My family is not Amish, but we just happen to dwell where, the hills and valleys of Ohio are, kind of in the middle of nowhere. So Millersburg, Ohio is where I hail from. And I grew up kind of at the local studio there, but I didn't really start dancing until I was 8. I started with gymnastics and like a tumbling class when I was 5, and then sort of got into dance like the backwards way. So like it was, like tumbling class, and then it was tap class, and then, jazz, and then the ballet got added at the end. But eventually, it got all there, and I trained at a local ballet center as well, focused just solely on that. And then I was fortunate enough to train in Los Angeles for a long time and live there as well. I grew up, of course, in the competitive circuit, kind of hitting competitions here, there, and everywhere in between. Brett was a huge inspiration to me growing up. I remember taking Diane Gudot's tap class and jazz classes at a local Ohio Dance Masters event, and Brett was one of the demonstrators. And like, it was just, it's a small world, and it's just nice to make full circles every now and then. But yeah, it's been a nice journey. And then I taught for a while. After I won Mr. Dance of America, I kind of focused solely just on teaching for a little bit. And then I got a wild hair and, went and toured with Bad Boys of Dance and Ross Thomas, toured with them for a while in Europe. And then I'm now back in Ohio and teaching and choreographing and judging and all that fun stuff.
Great. And I know you're a good teacher, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's what I wanted to be since I was a kid.
You're doing a great job, as the people who attend the conferences and everything know. So I want to say, or ask my first question, Brett, what made you walk into a dance studio for the first time?
Yeah, I went to preschool at the YMCA, the local YMCA in Indianapolis. And one of my classmates was Caitlin Gudot, Diane Gudot's daughter. And we became great friends, and started to hang out outside of the preschool. And this is the story that I've been told. There was a show and tell, and Caitlin brought in tap shoes for show and tell. And I guess I fell deeply in love with the tap shoe and started to talk about tap and dance. And my mom and dad were luckily listening to me talking about tap and dance. And Diane invited me to the studio to take my first tap class. That's how I got into dance, was through tap, which I still love. And Diane is still teaching tap, of course. Yeah, and so then from there, I fell in love with dance, started to take other genres, like Drew, ballet ended up being the last thing that I got into, but I eventually got there.
Because back then they thought you had to ease a boy in slowly. Otherwise,
Exactly.
it's very interesting if you think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I was hooked by tap and then acro and jazz, and then kind of the ballet modern world came a little bit later.
How about you, Drew? What made you walk into a studio that first time? That
Well,
acrobatics, gymnastics?
kind of, yeah. So my parents owned a bed and breakfast, and there was a big sign in the front yard, with the phone number and the business name and all that. And I think the local dance teacher, she saw this, little boy turning cartwheels, in the front yard. And so, I mean, she probably wrote down the number or something and called my mother and said, I saw this little boy turning cartwheels in your yard. Does he want to come take a tumbling class? And, then the rest is kind of history, as they say. So it was actually like she kind of sought me out, and I'm grateful for that, because I would have never really even walked in those doors unless my mom got that phone call. Although my mom did try to take me to like a tumbling class, like when I was 3 or 4, but there were all these big kids, jumping over a vault. And I mean, it was like a YMCA kind of summer program. And I just cried in her arms. I wanted nothing to do with it at all. But, I think the Olympics actually helped kind of like get me going a little bit. I got inspired by like seeing all the gymnasts at the Olympics, and, it was like, I can do that too.
Very cool. So I'll let either one of you answer this first. At what point in time, or how old were you when you realized that dance wasn't so cool with the kids you went to school with or whatever? How old were you when you first realized that?
Brett, you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think in elementary school, maybe too young to really know what was going on. And I feel like maybe kids at that age care less about sort of where they sit, maybe in like the cultural hierarchy of popularity and what they're doing in school with sports or art or dance. For me, I felt like I really started to realize what was happening around me in terms of maybe people saying something or feeling judged or perhaps bullied was more in the middle school range. And where I am from, 6 different elementary schools came together to one middle school. So you were around a lot more people, navigating, finding your way. Who are my new friends? Who do I want to be hanging out with? And so some of your elementary school friends you didn't see anymore because maybe they were in a separate part of the middle school. And so 7th or 8th grade, that's probably 11 or 12, is when I started to really feel the effects of other people's verbal abuse, judgment, making fun of, and then really questioning, is this what I want to be doing? Because it hurts. Like the days are long and painful, but yet when I made it to the dance studio, it was so joyful and a happy moment there. So I sort of had these like highs and lows within the day, and navigating that experience as a young middle schooler.
Wow, what you just described, I totally relate to. Yes. Can we keep doing this based on the abuse? And then you dance and you find your people and you say, yes, I keep doing it. But not everybody, not all the guys who have a passion for dance can make that decision and survive it. Drew, how about you? How old were you when you started to realize, okay, I chose something the guys aren't thinking is so cool?
I realized actually pretty quickly, because the town that I grew up in, for the majority of like my schooling, my elementary and middle schooling, it was predominantly a football and wrestling town. which is kind of ironic that wrestlers wear leotards and I mean, it's just the whole thing is kind of funny, like how all of that works itself out. I wasn't rolling around with other guys on the mat, but like the fact that I was in dance class with other girls, that was seemed as like a threat to them. Or just, they treated me very differently. I would say definitely from 4th to 8th grade. Once I was a freshman, it got a little bit better once I moved to California. It was almost a complete 180 where I was no longer the kid shoved into lockers, but I actually was the cool kid on campus. Every single guy wanted to be best friends with me because I was sort of their wingman into every girl on the dance team. So like I was very blessed that I got a literal like complete opposite from small town America to a larger city and a suburb of Los Angeles, California. I mean, I went from a high school of 400 kids to almost like a high school campus of 4,000 students. So it actually helped me going to a bigger area instead of obviously staying in a small town. But
gotcha.
Yeah, 8th grade was really rough. I'm not gonna lie, it was brutal.
I can say that I agree. I think it was junior high, which is 7th and 8th grade. For me as well, kids seem to turn really mean at that age. Okay, I'm going to ask you this because I want to share this with people. Okay, I'll start off here and say this, but I was called a faggot every day of my life through junior high and high school, every day that I was there. What were some of the things that kids said to you that you've never forgotten?
Oh, I don't even want to repeat some of the things that people have said to me, but there's this one instance when someone threw a donut at me, like as I was walking down the street, and not that that's that big of a deal, but it's always stuck out of my mind. Like, why would you waste a good donut like that too? Because it was from probably from the donut shop down the street, but like, it was like so weird. You're not only like trying to antagonize somebody who's just walking down the street, but I mean, I had my school backpack on and they obviously knew who I was, but I had no clue who they were other than just donut wasters. But that moment stuck out in time at me a lot where I'm like, wow, like even in my own hometown, I can't walk down the street without someone throwing something at me just for being different. It also probably didn't help that I was on the front page of the newspaper probably once or twice a year because my mom in my studio was very pushy and proud about, getting publications out at that time. Social media wasn't as big of a thing then. So, it really wasn't even around. So, they wanted, real media publications of us. I'm kind of grateful for it, but also it was always like, oh, it's going to be rough at school next week,
Mm.
Very, very interesting. Yes, I agree with that. Getting excited because you were in the paper, but at the same time, going to school the next day and everybody having something to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Brett?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel like maybe I've blocked out a lot of it, the trauma of it all. But I mean, similar to you, faggot, gay, queer, sort of the go-tos of making fun of or bullying young boys at that time. I don't remember anything being like physically abusive. Drew, you had mentioned being shoved into a locker. I don't think that any of those kind of things happened. It was more verbal abuse. And I remember having to tell people, I didn't even tell people that I danced for a while. I told people that I did karate just to like kind of push the narrative, the story over to another path.
Isn't that interesting? Just
yeah.
Think about that. So for our viewers, what do you think the Brett Perry was feeling at that time? Describe it.
So many different feelings. I mean, I knew that I loved dance, and I really did have a core group of people that took such great care of me. My parents being one of them, Diane, the dancers at the studio. The thing is I didn't go to a high school that a lot of the dancers at my studio went to. So I sort of had to navigate the days at school separate from the people that I hung out with at my dance studio. It was just a separate school line, how it was broken up in the area. Gosh, I would say a lot of sadness, a lot of fear, a lot of shame for what I was doing. But, you know, I think balancing out with the sort of like passion, finding something that you love, knowing that I was good at it. Like I did recognize that I had something going here. And trying to like really ground myself in that.
Wow. Drew, how about you? What were you feeling?
When I was living in Millersburg, going to the smaller town school, I was definitely scared daily. I was definitely scared because even after talking with administrators and, like filing like incident reports, right? My mom would show up. I mean, it would be a whole thing, right? Nothing really ever actually happened. And then, you sort of like look to what happens with violence in America these days, and it is pretty scary. But so I was definitely scared most days going to school. I really was, until I went to high school in California. Like then it was a complete 180. I felt like I was almost king of the campus. I mean, I got away with things that other people couldn't get away with. Like there was a no hat policy, but I was Drew Burgess, so I could wear a hat to school and nobody ever said anything because, I was the cool kid on campus. And it was really, really different. And it was a bit empowering once I finally had that, because I had a whole entire support system out there instantly, like from day one. They apparently one girl on the dance team heard that some guy moved to California and is going to school there. And, the dance teacher called me in. I'm so grateful for it. I'm still in touch with her, of course, every so often when I'm in California. But she, basically said, I heard you're amazing and I'd like to see you dance. So she called me in to the dance studio at the high school that I was attending and let me twirl around for a little bit. And she was like, whatever you want to do, like you're home here. And it was incredible. I'm so grateful for her.
Yes, when we're around our people, it changes.
Yeah, the tribe is real when you find them.
I think that is like I was going to ask the question, how did you survive? But I think we would all answer the same way, which is the people around us who were into dance, who encouraged us to keep going, who said, you got something, this is good, don't listen to what the kids say. Not always did it work, but the chance to go into that world. And also for guys now with all the competitions, title competitions, all of those things, the meeting up wherever you go and seeing other guys who are passionate about what you're passionate about, they take that home to their small towns with them, and that keeps them going for yet another year. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So here goes another, deeper one, I guess. Drew, what would you say to that 12-year-old boy who's now been through some of this tough stuff, who doesn't know if he wants to keep dancing?
It sounds really cliche, but it gets better. It really does get better. And you have to keep fighting the good fight for yourself. And if you're passionate about anything that you want to do, keep that fire alive and remind yourself what made you want to start in the first place. I find that sometimes you have to be your own biggest cheerleader, and like it starts with yourself. So, just keep going. You have to dig deep. And if you're really passionate about anything, you'll find a way to always make it work, no matter what you have to crawl your way through. You'll figure it out.
How about you, Brett? Sorry, Drew.
Oh, no. I was just going to say dance really solidified my passion for it, or just in general. Every time that something bad or negative happened, it made me realize how much I still love to dance even more and just needed it in my life.
Yeah, I second everything Drew said. It gets better. keep going. You love this. This is your passion. And how incredible it is to find something at such a young age that you care so deeply about. You don't have to be friends with everyone around you. Choose the people that love you and that care about what you're doing and that support you. And everyone else, like, it's fine. Don't worry about them. Obviously they've got their own insecurities and stuff going on with their lives. I think that's a big reason why they say the things that they do say. It's not necessarily about me or the young male dancer, but it's more about them.
I honestly think too, like 99% of people in dancers' lives, male dancers' lives, they're usually pretty supportive, but there's always going to be like 1% just total morons who just don't get it, you know, and maybe won't ever, but you have to pay attention to the 99% of the people who are supportive and not even pay any attention to the 1%. Doesn't matter.
It is, I hate to say it because I feel this is something that goes across our industry. It's a confidence thing. It's the ability to be confident in who you are and what your passion is. But as we talk about that, referring to these boys, I say that to teachers and studio owners all the time as well. You know, you have to believe in yourself. And for the guys, yeah, it may be tougher to believe in yourself, but boy, if you can get over that hump, the opportunities, and there's some women out there who don't like this fact, but the opportunities for guys in the dance world, they're just open and so much for us if we can make it over that hump of indecision and a lack of confidence in ourselves because we want to be, I guess, like the cool kids. I don't know. Maybe at that age, that's what we're striving to be. I want to ask you a question, and there may not be a definitive answer, but Brett, why do you think a guy who dances or a boy who dances is so, this is the wrong word, but I can't think of a better one, offensive to another 12-year-old boy? How does it threaten them? Because you use that word. What do you think's going on in that kid's head?
Yeah, I guess it feels easy for them. It's an easy way to make them feel bigger, to feel more important. You know, this stigma behind dance being for girls, being feminine, you know, only, you know, sort of the stigma of guys who dance are gay, right? But we know that that's not always true. There are plenty of straight men out there who dance beautifully. Yeah, I just think it's easy. It's an easy way to make them feel more important. Like they can climb the ladder easier by putting other people down.
Got anything to add to that? That was...
To piggyback off of that, it's an easy target. Anybody that's different than somebody else, if they feel just threatened or inferior or you know, just even curious, because kids are usually, the meanness tends to be like the way that they almost communicate a lot of things. If they don't have that good support, like that good loving support system at home, if they aren't shown how to communicate well with other children, often it comes off as, even if they might be curious about it or inquisitive, they actually get mean and snarky and, you know, nasty about it, just because it's different than them, even though they might be curious about it. But it comes across as a way of being defensive and or being offended by it.
Very interesting. What do you think? Well, first, let me do this. All of our viewers out there, feel free to put in some questions if you have any. I'd love to ask Drew and Brett some of your questions or your thoughts. But what do you think, studio owners and teachers, what could we do better at with our male dancers? And I want to say this. I remember during my teaching days sitting down with a group of boys and saying, is it hard? And they wouldn't admit it for the first half hour. Do you get that? Like, they didn't want to tell me the kids were making fun of them for some reason. It took until I told them that I was made fun of till they would jump in. And now I'm going to add to that. It took me till I was in my 30s to talk about what they said and did. Like today, I could just say it on the air in front of everybody what I was called. Before 36-ish, I think I carried with me, I don't know, I hate to say this word. Maybe we should have brought a psychologist on this session. I embarrassed by what I went through. Not mad at the people necessarily, but embarrassed because of the situation.
We carry trauma with you, really, though.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
It's heavy.
Okay, so that was a question where I went off. Like, what do you think teachers could be doing, thinking, saying, being, anything?
To me, just be as supportive as possible when they need it. But if I'm being honest, I'm not, especially with dancers, sometimes it's not necessarily about talking your feelings out. It's about dancing your feelings out. So in my opinion, sometimes the best way is to get to the dancing and not talk as much about their feelings. Let them dance out their emotions. And then after they're, after they've completely exhausted their bodies, it's actually easier for them to usually talk because one, they're tired. And they'll be able to just formulate a few words that are actually more meaningful as opposed to just letting all their emotions run out like right away, and then they just feel kind of drained for the rest of the session. So if you're going to chat with them, let them dance it out first, then talk later is usually my go-to. And sometimes kids feel better. This is boys, girls, whoever, they feel better after they've danced already. So, sometimes you just got to get to the movement.
Mm. Yeah, I almost think I would approach it opposite of that, where I feel like more communication at the beginning, especially for our young male dancers. How was your day? How are you today? Tell me about your day. To get them to verbalize. I think because dancers, we are masters of nonverbal communication. That's what we do. We're very good at not talking. Those are some of the things that I'm working on right now, using my voice more. How many times are we in the studio and we ask a question and no one answers? And we have to repeat the question and say, is anyone there? Like, to get dancers to talk more, I think would be an interesting exercise. And I think that has to start by asking questions. And keep it very general, right? Don't say, well, tell me about that kid that said that. It's, how are you today? Tell me about you. What was your favorite thing? Get them going, get them talking. But I do agree with Drew, right? Like, we chose dance because that's where we feel like we can express ourselves the most. And I think listening to that in the room and maybe letting sort of the general vibe or feeling of the room generate the steps that come out. Like, let the students use what they're feeling about their experience through the day come out in movement.
I agree with that. I almost feel like it was that music and that movement was, as much as I said who I was surrounded by growing up, people-wise, it was the music and feeling it and moving with your whole soul in it. That was the release, was the reason you fought the fight. Absolutely. for that feeling. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
When I
That's not a no. I was going to just say that's not a male or a female feeling. That's a human soul feeling
Mhm.
that only dance people can describe to others. Go ahead, Drew. I interrupted. I think there.
I can't tell you how often I start a class and I always, greet everyone and say, hey, how was your day? I'm happy to see you all. And so often they say school was rough today. And this is boys, girls, everybody. Like, school was a little rough today. It was a rough day at school. And I always try to come back with, well, dance is going to make it all better. And
Mhm.
and then we start to just move it out a little bit. And then, we will chat every now and then. But yeah, I mean, I will definitely try to keep a steady balance to it. But 9 times out of 10, I tend to just feel better if I get to dance with it. Whether it's just with myself or with a whole group of people, I feel better once I've danced.
Yes. And the applause helps. No, I mean that. When you're a dancer and you're that guy and you get out on stage and the audience goes nuts for whatever you're doing, that helps.
Absolutely.
That keeps you going. That reminds you that, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
You can't leave that out of the equation, because I was a guy who loved applause.
Of course.
So, any closing words of wisdom, you guys?
Mm.
Go ahead, Brad.
Okay. I think we've mentioned it several times before, but really paying attention to the people who are around you, who support you, who create not just a safe space for you, but a brave space, allowing you to take risks and to really truly be yourself. I mean, I think today I'm going to sort of generalize. I know it's still hard, but with access to more social media, seeing more male dancers out there, we grew up in a non-social media generation. And so I think what what Diane was doing in traveling during the summers and getting out in the competition world was not just about the trophies and the this or the that. It was to meet people and to see other dancers out there, to get to know them, to ask questions. I think that's important, to make sure that you are pushing the network, the connectivity of dancers, not just, again, the competition of being the best or the highest score. Yeah, and just I think the dance studio must be the safest, most beautiful, sacred place for these young dancers that you can possibly muster up, right? And that's, I think it already is that, but just being really aware of the power that the dance studio has on young dancers' lives.
Okay. I before I ask you for your final words of wisdom, Drew, it's your mom who wrote a question. Here it is. Your mom wrote this question. We never talked about it, so I want to do it kind of fast.
No problem. I was actually even going to touch on this with costumes, and kind of jumping back to what studio owners could do to help support our male dancers as well. It does definitely make you dance a little stronger when you're not surrounded by pink walls. So, consider not having necessarily every single wall in the studio pink and purple. Like, more gender neutral and gender friendly colors definitely will help boys feel more at home, or just, any male identifying human at all. That just makes them feel a little more, primary colors are always a good one, but just makes them feel more at home. And then obviously with costuming, in my opinion, guys need to dance like guys as much as possible, right? I mean, obviously, like, there's some like things that are changing, and we need to be more fluid. But usually when you're being hired, you're usually hired to dance as a guy, so we have to costume them as a guy. So, making sure that they have good slacks that are still stretchy, like black pockets that are not like lined in white when they have black pants, long black socks, no midriff, that kind of a thing is always helpful whenever you're costuming guys.
I saw you wearing midriffs in some of your old pictures, so I know
Oh,
you're saying
multiple
it from,
midriffs,
I
multiple.
think I
You're
did
like,
too.
no wonder I was made fun of. Like, shoot, I probably make fun of myself these days. Like, you know, if I was still wearing that. But like, we all obviously have to be as inclusive as we possibly can, and we should be inclusive. But I mean, teachers, we also have to just make good choices about costuming our guys so that way they still look like guys and feel like guys too. It's not necessarily looking like it; it's also feeling the part too.
And I gotta add something. I never say this, but I probably heard it twice this week. I talk to studio owners all the time or teachers. And do you know, when they're talking to me and they're talking about their students, they say my girls. And I think to myself, wow, I wonder if she's got any guys. Because she says, my girls like this, or my girls like this teacher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is it subliminally?
Could be kind of auto programmed, like, you know, it's because over the year, you know, ladies, gentlemen, you know, now even like, especially in bigger cities, like we're not even really supposed to say, like, you know, we're not supposed to say names or, you know, of pronouns at all. It's more of a, is your birthday January through March? Please step onto the floor. You know, is your birthday April through June? Step onto the floor. You know, we all have to be more inclusive and gentle with our words and say dancers.
Absolutely.
Girls, boys.
Yeah, I've tried to cut out guys saying like, hey guys, step forward, or using dancers, or trying to, you know, use they, them much more, because you just don't know, unless you're really asking questions, exactly what's going on inside of the studio or just inside of these young dancers' heads, especially with the availability of so much information that they're gathering. Being really sensitive to the words that you're saying by calling dancers out. I think that's a great point.
Yes, and isn't it better just to say dancers?
Dancers, that is probably the best way to acknowledge the people in the room.
Dance humans, come forward. You know, I'm one of those.
Yeah.
Okay, I have, please ask my question. I didn't see all questions for everybody watching, so please bear with me. About genres being more acceptable than others for boys, hip hop versus ballet. Any comments on that?
I think all dance is for all boys, or, you know, all dance in all genres are great for everybody. I mean, yes, it tends to seem like the general public would assume that, you know, the more ballet oriented, you know, the more effeminate they might be, but that's not always the case at all. But I mean, I would encourage all boys to take all forms of dance that their studios offer. The more, the better. The more that you've got in your wheelhouse, the more that you can do with it.
I lost track of my thought. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Did you have something to say there, Brett?
Well, I mean, I think you know, get them in the door, whatever it takes, whatever genre they hook onto, they bite into, absolutely. But, you know, I keep reiterating access to social media and YouTube. Like, you know, there's so much to see. So if they're questioning whether they want to do ballet, which is generally, hi Scotty, which is generally the case, is ballet tends to be the one that's maybe in question. Show them videos of like Brishnikov and, you know, balance. Absolutely. Like, there's so many choices to see. And there are like male ballet superstars right now who are just doing incredible work. And you have access to it, you know. Do a research, send your students home with a research project and have them come back and talk about, you know, the male dancers that they studied. You can make it really fun.
I agree. And I would like to say, if hip hop is the way for me to bring boys in, then that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
And start to add in the jazz and the acro, and then, you can get the tap and the, then the ballad.
The way Drew did it, the way other people did it. We just didn't have hip hop at the time.
Right.
But if you were to look at the growth, let's say in the last decade of male dancers, I bet you if you talk to them, they started in some sort of a hip hop class.
Probably.
Yeah.
That was as close to the coolest, or is as close to the coolest thing a guy who wants to dance could do.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up, growing up in the late 90s, early aughts, early 2000s, like that's what we were seeing on TV, right? Music videos, MTV, backup dancers, like, yeah, that would absolutely be the way in.
Yes. And for me, it's anything I can do to get a boy to walk into a dance studio and feel comfortable. And I agree with you, Drew, on the pink walls, on a culture where there's some male dancers in the lobby with his pictures like that even in your literature and on your website, do he/she when you're writing things down so that you're creating the norm that boys dance. Like, there's just boys and girls.
Yeah.
And will increase. I think we've done good, actually. I have to say, there are so many more. Growing up, Rennie and I, my twin brother and I, were the only two guys in the studio, give or take somebody who try the teen class or something, but wouldn't last because of people making fun of them for taking dance.
Yeah. And I think if you have...
No, you go.
No, I think another part that helped me so much is summer intensives or some, nationals during the summer. If you have the means and the way to travel for certain dance opportunities, that was a way for me to see other guys, other male identifying dancers, because they were attracted to the same thing, right? So, because there were a couple of guys in my studio, but it was really the summer nationals and intensives where I was like, oh, wow, there are a lot of us out there who are, having the same struggles and living very similar lives. This is the opportunity to meet them.
Yes, agreed.
It's helpful to know that you're not alone when you get to be that, small fish in a much bigger pond. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we didn't have Facebook or any of that to connect. So it really had to be in-person meetings.
Yes. I so much appreciate you guys and this, I don't know, real talk.
Mm-hmm.
We will continue this discussion into the future. And I say to all my female friends out there, communicate with your boys, find mentors that will encourage them. When you get to hire somebody to come into your studio, consider a male that might spend some time with your boys. Work to make it just the norm that all boys dance, and that they're certainly welcome at your studio. Awesomeness. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in today, including Drew's mom, who has now become a regular on my programs.
Gotta love it.
I do. Lots of great comments, you guys. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ree. Always a pleasure.